the visionary CEO of Emirates Development Bank. He is committed to supporting the UAE's economic diversification plan through tailored financial solutions such as the launch of the Empowering of the Future Entrepreneurs initiatives, which provided over 1 billion dirhams in funding to Emirati entrepreneurs. Ahmed is an alumni of Harvard Business School and Virginia Tech School of Architecture. Ahmed's leadership has been recognized with numerous prestigious awards. To name a few, he was awarded as the Best CEO for Banking Transformation in the UAE in 2021. His bank was awarded as the Best Regional Development Bank in 2023.
Favorite part of my job is visiting the factories. I feel like I'm back in high school, middle school when you do the field trip. I love visiting the factory. And making money for me is not a purpose. What motivates me is waking up in the morning and feeling like when I'm going out today will have an impact somewhere in my community, in my world. And by the way, I believe the younger generations with their access to the digital world that we didn't have when we were young does really expose them to a lot of different cultures, a lot of different ideas, things that they can see in the world.
Hi, Ahmed. Thank you so much for making it today. We're really excited having you here.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, and I really appreciate to have the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So, Ahmed, if you recall when we had a chat, the whole idea of the podcast is inviting inspiring leaders like yourself and really understanding the impact they're creating in the region, whether it's in the GCC or the Middle East. And what we're trying to achieve with that exercise is we want people to get to know the real Ahmed, what's behind your mind, and what makes you tick, and really what incentivizes you to actually do this impactful work in the region. It's nice that we read about the Ahmed in the newspapers, etc., but we really want to get to know you and inspire the audience, basically. So either inspire, they learn something new, or maybe start to think differently. And we will try to embrace ourselves into your brain during that podcast. Before we go into the impact part, I really want to take a step back and genuinely get to know Ahmed who's in front of me, not Ahmed from Emirates Development Bank. We just want to talk with you through your life journey. And if you can take us there and elaborate slightly about your life journey.
Thank you. First of all, I'm really humbled that you guys would view me in that light. And, I definitely view myself as someone who has still a lot to do and achieve and aspire towards achieving over the years to come, inshallah. But I hope that I can maybe add a bit of value to your audience and let them know a bit about myself and my journey to where I am today and the things that we're doing today with Emirates Development Bank. If I start from my childhood, I would consider myself a part of a generation that was truly the first group of what I like to call global citizens. About 6 months after I was born, we moved to the United States, to Washington, D.C. specifically. My father was a military attaché for the United Arab Emirates in the U.S. at the time, the early 80s. And so I grew up in a way that was a bit different than your typical childhood because we moved around a lot. So we were not necessarily based in one location, although the majority of it was in Washington, D.C., but we moved around to different parts of the states, to California, to Alabama, Washington, D.C. And then we had a stint. My father was assigned the same role in Paris, and we were there for about 4 years. And then back to the UAE, and then back again to the States. So I did everything, from my kindergarten to my primary school to my middle school, my high school, my university degrees, all in the U.S. It was a time where, my family was very close because of the family unit. You're very much together the whole time. Your surroundings change a lot, but the family doesn't change. So it taught me that very close family relationship and family ties, and learned a lot from my father and my mother. It also taught me resilience, because you can imagine at such a young age, in the States they have a word for them. They call them military brats, where they're basically moving from, location to location, base to base. And so for us, we had to really learn how to adapt at a very young age to different cultures, different backgrounds, different surroundings, changing schools, and just having that ability to kind of make your way wherever you were. I had two fantastic parents. I have a father who was an intellectual, so other than being a military man, he was one of the first 6 fighter jet pilots of the UAE. Later became an intellectual in the sense of going into the private sector, finishing his degrees, his PhD. Very intelligent man who taught me at a very young age how to really question everything. I remember it till today, actually. It's one of the things that kind of was instilled in me was nothing is truly holy, so to speak.
Sure.
You have the ability and you should use it for your mind to question everything. Don't just take the status quo or what you are told as just that's the way it is. You should have the ability to question everything. And that was kind of the early seeds of innovation thinking that was planted, because from that early age, I was taught in that way. I had a mother who was also unbelievably resilient, intelligent, a real caretaker for us, someone who was very creative, and someone who really taught me the discipline of principles and being principled, having, our religion, but also having our culture, having our understanding. And again, in those kinds of environments where you're constantly moving and constantly in different places, to be able to instill those kinds of values and principles in us. I have a brother and 2 sisters, and all of us share the same values, was something fantastic for my mom to do. I mean, I appreciate it now at the age that I am now when I have my own kids.
Sure.
And it's incredibly difficult, and I don't have to move around as my parents did with us when we were young. So that was something which was really the foundation and building blocks that led me into my career when I came back. So when I came back from the States, I was actually an entrepreneur to start off with. So I was an entrepreneur. I had graduated with a degree in web design and development from Virginia Tech. And my specific focus when I came back this is in 2005, was I set up a company that was creating websites. And at that time, it was definitely, within the times and so on, and I was doing quite well. But my father, being the military man that he is, insisted that I got a real job, right? Entrepreneurship was not back then what it is today. It didn't get the kind of real respect that it deserved, that it gets today. As a country, I think we recognize a lot more that entrepreneurship is something that should be encouraged. But at that time, it was a different mindset, and it was the mindset of, you need to have a career, you need to work with an institution. And I also got very lucky. So I ended up working with the National Bank of Abu Dhabi. Yeah. National Bank of Abu Dhabi is a fantastic organization, institution. Many years later, it ended up merging with First Gulf Bank, which became FAB today. And it was a real incubator for talents. And when I entered and I went into the National Bank of Abu Dhabi, I had a different mindset. They entered me into a national trainee development program, but I didn't have your typical banker mindset. And so that actually opened up a lot of opportunities for me, because I was able to see things from a different light. And then again, going back to the fact that I was able to always question things. So I joke with people, I tell them my career started with a cardboard box.
Okay.
And what happened was during my training stint, this national training development program that they had at the time, they put you in different departments and different divisions of the bank, to go get experience. And so one of the first departments or divisions that I was in was the recruitment division. And one of the things that I observed was when people came in with CVs, they would take their CVs and they would put it in a cardboard box underneath the desk. Again, 2005. Keep in mind the time, right? And this cardboard box would fill up by the end of the week, or maybe every 2 weeks. And I asked them, I'm like, what do you do with those CVs in that cardboard box? They explained to me, every couple of weeks when it fills up, we send it out to a warehouse in Musafah, the industrial area in Abu Dhabi, and we store it there. From what I understood, the policy of the organization was that every 5 years they get destroyed. Also, the documentation, non-essential documentation, essentially gets destroyed every 5 years. It's stored as a policy for 5 years, and then it's basically removed so that, otherwise you just have endless warehouse space, right? You'd need endless warehouse space. So post that, went to IT, was in the different divisions, departments, met the different people, same thing. So I was sitting there and within a couple hours getting bored and thinking to myself about, what I had seen the previous weeks when I was in the recruitment division. And I thought to myself, there has to be a better way to do this. I'm a web designer. I know how to work with databases and these kinds of things. So I built a prototype of an SQL database, an MS SQL database. And then I built a front end. And then I spoke to the head of IT. And then I spoke to the head of HR. I kind of, at that time, just didn't really have a filter in the sense of, being shy about these things. I told them, look, you guys are doing X, Y, Z. Let me build for you guys a prototype. Here's, what I could do. So I built for them something which ended up becoming the actual recruitment platform and system, because I built it into a web interface. They assigned for me an IT team and worked with me. We built the database. We built the web interface. And then it became the actual recruitment system that was being used by the bank, and it became more and more sophisticated over time, of course. And because of that system, the head of the personal banking, retail banking at the time, fantastic gentleman, was looking for UAE nationals, and he saw the system. He's like, who did this? They're like, oh, there's this Emirati who's in the national trainee program. So he's like, okay, I want him to come work for me. We're going to start a department, the electronic banking services department. And we would like him to come and join this department. It was just myself and one other person. And the purpose at the time was, to start developing electronic banking services for personal banking. Again, early days, no iPhone, of course. None of these things were out yet. You basically just had the web, the internet, that kind of thing. So we would find gaps in the market. We developed the first mobile banking services for the UAE, for a bank. Again, pre-iPhone. We used to use SMS banking. We developed the internet banking for the bank. Again, I believe it was the first at the time. We also then found different gaps that, were in the market where we would build products or businesses around them. And with years, it started growing and becoming bigger and bigger. So we built things like, I remember there was a gap in the market at the time for payroll. And I remember reading in the news that there were these issues with unscrupulous contractors who were not paying their contractors their payroll. So we ended up building a system that was linked to a prepaid card, which was a salary card. And we were the first to have it in the market. 6 months later, the central bank of the country mandated that not this specific system, but that basically all contractors in the country, that we're talking about now, about 2009, all contractors in the country have to utilize a payroll system of one of the banks, basically process their payroll through the banks. And the Ministry of Labor would not issue any licenses to these contractors or any visas for new hires if they did not prove that they were processing their payroll from banks. We were the only ones that had a product. Not only that, but we worked with the central bank, and they ended up taking a portion of our system, building it into the central bank, what is now today called the wage protection system, which exists till today. We were the only ones that had a product around this. And so it just blew up. I mean, I'm talking about within a matter of a couple of years, we had over 4 million customers. It became the largest segment of the bank.
I love it. Honestly, it's very impressive. If I take a step back from all what you just said, is if you think about your childhood, you traveled around, so you have a lot of adaptability, resilience. Then your next job was, you don't want to get bored, right? And you take the proactive approach. Do you think all those elements helped you in what you're doing right now and what you're planning to do in the future? So what motivates you? What are the key triggers?
So from a motivation factor, I like the sense of achievement and impact.
Okay.
I like feeling like what I do when I wake up in the morning has some kind of purpose. It's just about having purpose. And making money for me is not a purpose. It's not to discount the difficulty of people going out and making money. I don't want to make it sound like, oh, it's so easy to make money. No, it's not. But what I mean is that's not enough for me to just do that, to just get the paycheck and just make money and so on. It's what motivates me is waking up in the morning and feeling like when I'm going out today will have an impact somewhere in my community, in my world. Whether it's on a small local level or it's on the country level. Alhamdulillah, the opportunity with Emirates Development Bank is to have the impact on the country level in order to develop these interests. That's really the motivation. And yes, absolutely, as you mentioned, the if we go back to, if I self-reflect on the childhood, what we are doing today is not for everybody. What we do today, Emirates is not for everybody. The resilience cannot be underestimated, because I see it with my own eyes many times, where I see people who are used to doing things in a certain way their entire careers. Sure. They might be fantastic people. They might be incredibly experienced people, but put them in a situation where they now have to build things from scratch. It's not ready-made for them, right? Where they now have to think outside the box, where they now have to really figure out solutions to challenges of problems that were never posed to them during their careers, because they worked for huge institutions that, your job is pretty much set for you. Just go out and get the business, sure. Basically, right? That's where I could really differentiate and see the difference in the resilience in different people. It's not for everybody. Transformation, innovation, these are buzzwords that people talk about. And people assume that they're all innovative or that they all have this aspect. But believe me, it's incredibly tough to build, to transform. And that's why I'm so in awe and admire entrepreneurs. And I believe I have that entrepreneurial spirit in me.
Just wanted to say, you're actually doing what you wanted to do as a starting job.
Absolutely. Within organizations. Absolutely. And of course, the opportunity has to be present for you. So again, alhamdulillah, I was very lucky that, in a bank like the bank that I worked for FAB and previously National Bank of Abu Dhabi, those opportunities were there. And they were supported by the most senior people. I'm always amazed, now that I'm in those positions, right? The CEO of a bank, I think to myself, I'm like, if a young guy came to me today and said to me, I want to build out the system for the recruitment of the bank, would I be able to support them? Not want to. Of course, I want to, but would I even be able to with the things that are going on around me throughout the day? So I really have to give credit to the fantastic people that were there at the time, and still there till today, many of them, who really supported a young, ambitious Emirati who wanted to do something better. And that's something which also I take with me every day. And I think to myself, when I see the younger generations coming in, that, we have to be the support for them, for their ambitions, especially when we find someone who wants to go out of the comfort zone and build something bigger and better.
That you talked about the opportunities you received when you were lucky, that when you were younger. What do you see as opportunities for EDB going forward? 2030, 2040 in the UAE, and where do you see your vision going?
So what we're doing with Emirates Development Bank under the guidance of His Excellency Dr. Sultan Al-Jaber and our board, fantastic group of people, again, all have that same mindset, by the way, that resilience, that ability to challenge, ability to build. Again, I got lucky, alhamdulillah, that I have a board and a chairman that really share a lot of these values and way of doing things. What our objective really is to build an institution. So it's not just about the targets that we have today and what we want to get to the market today, which is absolutely our focus today. But it's also about building in parallel something that will be an institution that can serve this country for decades to come. A development bank today, I mentioned those 5 key sectors that we're focused on, and it's clear why we're focused on those 5 key sectors in today's context. But that changes over time. The context of the country changes over time. We might want to develop another sector. We might want to provide other services. So an institution has to be built that can cater to those needs over time, where essentially our cabinet of ministers, our president, if they give certain direction for where the country wants to go, Emirates Development Bank can immediately pivot into that direction, be nimble enough to be nimble.
Yeah.
So it has to be an institution. It has to be something where you have various functions that are able to work together and consistently innovate and build these products and services to cater to those needs.
Talking about impact, I'm just thinking about the whole podcast is about impact, and the impact Emirates Development Bank is genuinely creating is phenomenal. One of the key things you and I discussed a while ago is the digital innovation Emirates Development Bank is really focusing on. Can you please share some insights about that?
Sure. So again, it's like I said, the EDB has been really fantastic in the sense that we've had the opportunity to really innovate and meet market demands. So I recall in the first few months of joining the organization, other than realizing that we had to build this thing from scratch, this corporate commercial development bank from scratch, we met with a lot of partners. So one of our key values is that we excel through partnership. We work to serve our partners, to make sure that they are meeting their mandates and their objectives.
Cool.
So I met with, 20, 30 partners in those first 3 months, on the federal level, on the local level, private sector, public sector, just everybody that we could talk to who was in this ecosystem, this development ecosystem. And there was one common problem, and luckily I understood it quite well, which was account opening.
Okay.
And that small problem, or what sounds like a small problem as account opening, is really the key to opening access to any business or any entrepreneur to setting up a business in the country. Because as an entrepreneur or a business owner who wants to come set up in the country, if you were not able to open up a bank account, it's done from day one. There's no point, right? I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to come barter? You're not going to, you need to actually have access to the financial system of the country and be able to utilize the banking services in order to conduct your business activities. So I understood that. What these partners are talking about is serious. It's real. It's not something that we should just, brush over and, it's a small thing. They'll figure out something. And it's not necessarily that the commercial banks don't open bank accounts. It's that the commercial banks could take anywhere from 3 to 6 months to open up a bank account. And in many times it could result in rejection. And to be very fair to commercial banks, again, being a commercial banker for many years, I completely understand, and I was in that world. You have KYC requirements, you have anti-money laundering requirements, you have FATCA requirements. These are very serious things that have to be taken seriously. And so what was the edge that EDB had? Well, EDB, one, was a federal institution. Two, EDB only transacted in UAE dirham local to the country. And what we do is only local to the country. So we came up with a solution where we said, look, we need to build a platform. And this platform should meet the demands and needs of our clients and our customers. And we always put economic impact over profit. So when we build these things, we don't think about it from how much money is this going to make EDB. We want it to break even. We want to make sure that it's covering the cost of the bank. But we're not thinking about maximizing profitability. We're thinking, how does this maximize economic impact? So we need something fast. We need something that could open bank accounts as quick as possible. And we need something that will hopefully be good services for the entrepreneurs. Now, the entrepreneurs were the ones that were mainly facing these issues, right? If you're an established company, typically you wouldn't have as much issues because all your documentation, your paperwork, everything, you have a trail, you have an audit trail. Yeah. But if you're starting a business from scratch, if you're asked for financial statements, well, I just started my business. Where's my financial statements? I need 6 months, 1 year. How can I build my financial trail if I don't have a bank account? So what we decided to do was look, we need something fast. We should not build this ourselves in-house. We should be the gatekeeper. We should be ensuring the standards, ensuring that, the compliance, all these kinds of things are on par what needs to happen. But we should be working with fintechs, right? Again, a different mindset than commercial banks. 100%. Because commercial banks will then have to share the profits with the fintechs. For us, it made no difference. As long as we're covering our costs, let them get the profits. Can they provide a good service? Can they do it quickly? So what we realized was, within a month and a half of having this conversation, about 2 months later, we launched the platform within 2 months. And we were able to go back to our partners and tell them, here's the solution that you're asking for. Now, it doesn't have all the bells and whistles that a commercial bank's mobile platform, but it's good enough for an entrepreneur to be able to open up a bank account, have access to the financial system of the UAE, start their business, be a kind of incubator for those entrepreneurs, a financial incubator for their account. And we would be more than happy if a year down the road or 2 years down the road, they built their track record, they're able to then open a bank account with a commercial bank.
You're creating a ripple effect.
A ripple effect, absolutely. Absolutely. And everything we've been building on this platform since has been very much targeted to that segment of the entrepreneurs and the startups. So account opening, we do it in under 48 hours. Actually, most of the time within 24 hours. And we're now targeting to do it in 15 minutes.
Oh, well.
Micro lending, you can apply directly through the platform. And then the other services that are being tagged on are all very much catered to entrepreneurs. So payroll processing, VAT calculation, bill payments, things that an entrepreneur, having like a one-stop shop incubator for their financial needs, where they can then utilize this for a year, 2 years. Hopefully they get big enough as a company where they're then able to go to any of the commercial banks and open up an account with them.
You have a huge impact, obviously, on a lot of people in the country, but you're also improving people's life.
Mm-hmm.
I remember you and I were discussing about the manufacturing area and how is this improving people's life. Do you mind sharing some insights about that? Because I found it fascinating when you mentioned that. So
that's, by the way, favorite part of my job is visiting the factories.
Okay.
I feel like I'm back in high school, middle school, when you do the field trips.
Yes.
I love visiting the factories. And I'm always amazed at the innovation and advancement. You would not realize just how advanced the UAE is in different manufacturing sectors. Whether it's Abu Dhabi, Dubai, Sharjah, Ras Al Khaimah, Fujairah, Ajman, mashallah, and as a country, we really, really are very, very advanced. And I love visiting these factories. And what I see when I visit these factories is a beautiful future where I believe the quality of life is going to be even better than what it already is in the UAE. And alhamdulillah, and we have such a fantastic quality of life, but you can imagine that it will only get better. And I'll tell you like simple little things where my mind goes when I'm in these factories. So I was in a factory a couple weeks back where they make water pipes. Yep. So pipes that are used in construction, they're in buildings and houses. Some of them are underground, some of them are above ground. And the gentleman that was manufacturing them was showing me the pipes themselves, the little joints and little things, little pieces that come out of the machine. And what was interesting to me was he was pointing out to me, like, look at this pipe, it's double-lipped. So there's, these little rubber coatings.
Yeah.
And he's like, anything that is imported into the country essentially is like a single lip because of the cost, right? Okay. And so when you're manufacturing locally, you can actually manufacture it with double the lip and still be more competitive than any import that comes out that is lower quality, right? So I started thinking to myself, about, the water leak that we get in the bathroom, right? Like, these are little things that affect quality of life, right? The leak you might get in the kitchen, or the leak you might get,
and it's local,
right? And it's local, right? In your home, in your villa, in your building, right? And so it just started to dawn on me. I'm like, wow, like in the future, the quality of certain products are going to be so much better that these are little tiny things, but believe me, they add up where your quality of life is so much better. I'll give you another example. I visit, again, a lot of these indoor farms. Again, with the advent of technology, with agri-tech and indoor farming, you can produce fantastic quality produce here in the UAE that is then not frozen, not shipped, not put out in the heat, not stored in containers and warehouses, but basically goes direct from farm to the market to be sold. And there's some fantastic companies out there where if you eat their products, there's a couple, there's one which I've been sourcing myself called Dar Az-Zud. They have chicken farms out in the western region, eggs and chickens and so on. You can go online, you can find them.
Okay.
This chicken is so good. It's so juicy. I'm like, really? There's things like Pure Harvest, a well-known company that was originally guaranteed by Emirates Development Bank, where the quality of their produce, the tomatoes, that they produce and everything. I'm like, wow, I'm used to eating this when I go to countries where that it's locally produced, right? Maybe Southern Europe, maybe some of the other Arab nations where they have local production. You can taste the difference in the food. Again, all of this leads to quality of life, right? Where you can imagine that a couple of years from now, if the majority of our food is locally produced, how much better the quality of that food will be. So whether it's our living spaces, whether it's the things we consume, whether it's the quality of healthcare, all of these things will, in my opinion, drastically improve in little ways over time where it'll be a noticeable difference.
Yeah, you're the prime example of actually working on genuinely impactful things that touching everyone's life in the UAE, and I really like listening to your stories. So if you think about other generations, like let's say you mentioned the new generation earlier, if they want to be similar to you or they want to be future inspiring leaders, what are the key takeaways or 3 key takeaways would you tell them worked with for you well in your life that you really think they can potentially benefit from?
So resilience is one. And resilience doesn't mean moving to, 10 different places like how I grew up. It doesn't necessarily mean that, but it means taking yourself out of your comfort zone, and do it young and do it early so you get used to it. So it becomes normal and common. Push yourself out of your comfort zone. Push yourself out of your group of friends. If I was talking to younger generations.
Yeah.
And by the way, I believe the younger generations with their access to, the digital world that we didn't have when we were young, does really expose them to a lot of different cultures, a lot of different ideas, things that they can see in the world. But pushing themselves out of their day-to-day routine and comfort zones and trying different things, try different sports, be well-rounded, try reading different books, try, learning different hobbies. Have the ability to really push yourself out of your comfort zone in order to develop this subconscious resilience where something new pops along, it doesn't freak you out.
Sure.
It's not, oh my God, I'm so used to this. This is how my world has been for the last 20 years. Now all of a sudden I'm expected to do it this way. No, make that on yourself a way of your life, that you're consistently changing things up, learning new things. So that builds resilience over time. 2, I would say, have that way of being innovative. If I go back to what my father taught me when I was young, question everything. Question everything in the sense of, don't just take the status quo. Understand that what you do in your day-to-day job and your day-to-day work, you should have the brain power to be able to figure out a better way to do it. Don't just take it as a given, oh, this is how it's been done for the last 30 years. For me in banking, for others, it could be in their own fields. Figure out better ways to do things. And better ways to do things are not, some kind of magic bullet or, huge change. It could be little details, little things on a day-to-day basis that if you just improve upon over time, you'll see that you've completely transformed whatever it is that you're working on or doing. Lastly, I would talk about principles. So I would tell people you have to have principles. You have to have principles. And I cannot stress that enough. Again, I thank my parents for that, but it's not something that is just taught to you. It's something that you have to really believe in, live by. A lot of people, to them, certain things about ethics and principles, it's just words. And words, are cheap and easy to say, but your actions are what actually define your principles. What you do on a day-to-day basis are what define your principles. You have to be a principled person, because otherwise, I tell people you're like a leaf in the wind. You're just someone who's being, following the flow and, being pulled in different directions without a clear objective or clear aim. Find that source of your principles and stick to them. It can be your family, it can be your religion, it can be your community, it can be your country. There's different ways where you can derive your principles, but find them and believe in them and stick to them. You have to have your principles and stick to them and believe in them because it's something that you truly feel you want to live by. It has to be a conscious decision.
Thank you for sharing so much of your life and your experience with us. It was truly, I learned a lot actually while we're listening. Thank you. And thank you for being on today's podcast.
Thank you so much. Appreciate being here.
Thank you very much.